Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tommy Lee Cassidy, and the writer of the Right Wave of Liberalism manifesto of which I had written. This new speech regulation that is impacting Britons across the Isles is an appalling attempt of censorship on a level we have not seen, I was going to say in a long time, but since COVID. This is telling of many things that are wrong in what we need to discuss today. For those who are unaware, the new Online Safety Act of, which is proportionately affecting everyone's private speech. The Act hands unprecedented power to the government and Ofcom to police private speech. This is everyday, interactions with one another. And this is simply proportionately appalling to everything that we believe, violating the core libertarian principles of individual autonomy and limited government. Due to this, there is a vague language, legal but harmful, opens the door to a subjective enforcement based on current political climate or ideology. For instance, they were okay putting this in because they were in a left-wing government. But imagine when reform gets in, all of a sudden this will be authoritarian, totalitarian, and frankly put, wrong. Now, I'm not going to give my political opinions where I sit on the left or the right, but if you want to personify that this is right, then imagine it being in control with any government. And I think that's where we're going to get an issue here. Because it sets a precedent for further expansion of the state's, surveillance and censorship in the name of, safety. When people have used the term nanny state, it is usually corresponded with the belief that the government is protecting people from themselves. But this act is literally the definition of the suppression of free speech. The entire basis of liberalism that we sit upon within the world of which we are in is classic libertarianism. And it rests on the freedom of expression, and it is the cornerstone of the liberty of this great and imperial powerful nation. This act undermines that by enabling the suppression of controversial, dissident, and incontroversial views. And it's legal to do so now. If this was the case, and we could have done this in the 19th and 20th century, we would not have female suffrage. We wouldn't have female suffrage, male suffrage. We wouldn't have the rights and the fairness of the LGBT rights that came about in the 20th century. The fact that we enabled the fact that it is right and perfectly fine to be gay, but all of a sudden now, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because because now your views, irrelevant of where they sit, because it can ideologically refrain against the state's ideologue, all of a sudden that is within itself a crime with everything. Because with this, platforms may over-censor, which they're already doing, to avoid penalties, creating a chilling, and I emphasize this, chilling effect, where users self-censor for fear of deplatformation, or to be deplatformed. This is appalling on a level that we have not seen in authoritarianist regimes since the 20th century. And you could make an argument that they're still involved, but you wouldn't consider it to be the West, the foundation. We are the platform of modern liberalism, for crying out loud. The state has now become the arbiter of truth and morality, deciding what is acceptable in discourse, a power that no government should ever possess. It creates a digital, moral police based on the prevailing cultural values, not universal liberal principles. This is appalling because what it creates is a de facto state control. I mean, tech companies are being forced to become enforcement arms of the state. American companies are now being forced to do the will of the state, irrelevant of the ideology of the state. This is appalling. I mean, the fact remains is that they're monitoring users' behaviour and reporting on violations, undermining private enterprise and contractual freedoms that we believe in so strongly. This violates the libertarian belief that companies should not become coerced or enforce state ideology. Our freedom of who we are, irrelevant of where we sit on the left or the right, is dying. The idea that one's fringe movements can never be taken a whole. What, are we believing that liberalism has ended and that everything is perfect? Because it isn't. Liberalism, we've got to drive forward, for driving on a sense, but we can only do that without the roots of what liberalism believed in. It's the only way for us to continue. I mean, it's getting so bad that someone like me who adores history, loves to see history from the perception of a historian, seeing censorship on a grounds that is frankly ridiculous. I can't believe I'm having to say this, but censoring history about the Crusades, because it could risk being seen as xenophobic or offensive, even when discussion academically or critically. Libertarians, like myself, we oppose this censorship, because it's what matters more about history isn't the way that we perceive it as an individual, nor as a society perceives it, but the truth. The truth matters more than anything else, even if it is uncomfortable. Intellectual freedom demands an open debate, not unilateral authoritarianism. It is appalling, because it's removing the one thing that makes us very, very proud, especially in the north of England: parental control. It is up to the parent to decide what needs to happen to their child, not up to a state that can change within ideology. This is frankly on the borderline of authoritarianism, because can we really call ourselves a liberal society if the foundations of which liberalism began have been eroding away to the point where free speech means nothing in a nation that cannot express itself? I mean, it enfranchises citizens, infantilizes citizens by suggesting the state must protect them from ideas, stripping away personal responsibilities and the right to judge content, and not just from oneself, but from society at large. It undermines parental authority over children's internet usage, replacing it with a governmental control. Do I believe strongly that something needs to be done about the internet? 110%. Do I believe that this is too far? It has gone too far. Too far to the extent that one cannot, to protect children, which has been a ploy that has been used throughout the entire 20th century, to protect the belief that people cannot make their own minds up. And it's been a ploy that has been used from every single regime, not just in European history, but global history. And then to defend yourself by saying, well, we're protecting the children. The hypocriticalness is outstanding. From the same person, I live in Rochdale, right? From the same party that said that they were protecting children for allowing a rape, paedophile, goddamn Pakistani rape gangs to harm our children. Our children. And then them having the gall to say, we are the party that's protecting children, not anybody else. And anyone who refutes that is on the side of predators, is frankly offensive to a level of degree that one can't even discuss anymore in the modern age. It is pathetic. But the international implication and hypocrisy is ridiculous itself. Is Britain becoming an authoritarian regime, mirroring those like China and Russia, We're even hearing calls of cancelling VPNs. If I'm not mistaken, there are only very few countries in the world that ban VPNs, and if I'm not mistaken, one of them is North Korea. What are we becoming? Right? Under the guise of safety, while criticising those nations for censorship. The literal hypocritical stance is dripping with assertion. And not just mentioning that, we're exporting this new wave of British censorship, which could destroy the reputation across the West as a bastion of liberty. Who are we becoming? Do we want to go down this route of absolute stupidity, in one's opinion? The precedent for ideological policing. Today is harmful speech, tomorrow is dissenting political opinion. And this is already happening on a level of which has never been seen before. The fact that the government has decided to bring up anti-migration policing, particular squads, particularly for this. What have we become? The nation that birthed modern libertarianism under Gladstone and Mill, to be stood here at the feet of desolation and annihilation on a way that which we have never been seen before, to then be stricken upon ourselves in the highest order, and instead of bringing ourselves to fight with honour and responsibility, we buckle like children in the wind. What have we become? And once a government acquires that power, it rarely gives it back. Have we become lost? As a nation that believes itself so strongly on libertarian values that our own Prime Minister stutters in front of the leader of the supposed three worlds and stutters in such grand ostentation to the feet of a deceiving and desolation of a population that doesn't understand the fundamentals of who we are, and stumbling on, well, we've always had free speech and we always have it around. Grossly misquoting, but what have we become? Our nation provided to who we are and what we are to become. Do we die of who we are and remove our values for an American import of social libertarianism, or do we fight back? Never with violence, of course, that will be un-English, but with words of intention, revolutionary ideas of the 19th century in England, standing strong under the brief of adversity. As Winston Churchill once said, one must have a stiff upper lip, a straight back, an assertion to the truth, and to say what we believe in our deepest hearts, not because we need to, but because we must. Thank you very much. God bless, good night, and of course, God save the King.